Trimming your dog's nails can be a stressful experience, especially when you get to the part where you're trimming their back nails. So today I've called in the expert. It's Joanna from Yellow Dog Grooming, and she's going to give you some simple tips to make trimming your dog's back nails much easier. I'm Ken Steep, and welcome back to McCann Dogs. So Joanna, what are some common mistakes you see people make when they're trying to trim their dog's back nails?
Often people try to take off too much length at one time.
Okay.
And it's important that you're not going into the vein of the nail so that the dog stays comfortable and isn't trying to pull away from you all the time. There is a vein, which we call a quick, inside the nail, and it's very tender. So if you go too short, too fast, it can make the dog uncomfortable, which makes it uncomfortable for the person trying to do the nails.
Sure.
Because the dog is struggling. So if we just start with a little bit at a time, then the dog is much more comfortable. And you can see there's just a tiny little bit sticking out from the nail trimmers, and that's all that needs to come off.
Okay, so little bits at a time.
Little bits at a time.
What other things can our viewers be aware of when they're trimming their dog's nails to make this the most as comfortable as it can be?
For sure. Not only do you want your dog standing in a good position and moving that leg comfortably, you also have to be mindful of the toes. Especially as a dog gets older, sometimes they'll get arthritis in their feet. So if you're really pushing at the toes or separating them, that can be uncomfortable for the dog. So you want to try and keep the feet in a natural position as you're trimming the nails. You can push the hair back if they have hairy feet so that you can see the nails, but you don't want to extend the toes, separating them or pulling them away from the foot. Just hold a nice firm grip in your hand and just trim the toenail like that.
Now, what are some tips that our viewers can take home about specifically trimming their dog's back nails?
When you're trimming the dog's back nails, it's important to have them in a comfortable position, and you want to keep the hip close to the body and bend at the knee and lift the leg up this way. You never want to extend the leg away from the body because it puts too much pressure on the hip, and then they're uncomfortable and they're not going to enjoy the process as much.
Okay, so having your dog on an elevated surface would probably make life a little bit easier.
It does help. Also, because on the floor they're used to, that's family time, play time. They're not aware that it's time to have their nails done. So if you elevate them up, then they know, okay, every time I go up, I'm going to get my nails done.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier, more of a routine for them.
Yep.
And then it's easier for you to be able to see the nail, and then you're not hyperextending the leg.
Okay. The position that you had your dog in, is it easiest to brace the dog from behind as you flex that leg a little bit?
Yeah, if you're behind the dog, and even if you're slightly above the dog, then you can see how the leg is moving.
Okay.
If you were to stand on the front half of the dog, then you're automatically tending to bring the leg towards you, which is uncomfortable for them.
Okay.
So if you're behind them, it's a much more natural position movement of the leg and makes it easier for you to do the nails.
Yeah, I'd imagine a helper is helpful to have. Someone holding your dog, or maybe somehow fashioning a leash or something so that they can't move around too much when they're elevated.
Absolutely. The more they struggle, if they're trying to get away or they're bored and they just want to go off and sniff a toy, then it's going to be a lot harder for you and for them. So if you have somebody to assist you, you can feed small treats.
Yep.
Just rub their ears, help to keep them calm. Even rubbing between the eyes helps to refocus the dog, so that then it makes it easier to do the nails.
We have lots of handling videos on the channel, and Joanna and I were just discussing some tips that she's got for puppy owners for getting their dogs used to nail trimming. And what did you mention there?
So in regards to getting your puppy used to having their feet handled, you want to always touch their toes, but then they get used to the warmth and the softness of your hands. So you also want them to be used to having their toenails touched with other objects. So if you don't have a pair of nail trimmers at home, you can use a metal spoon and just lightly touch the toenails with that metal surface. And then the dog starts to get used to that, and it makes it a lot easier for them getting used to the nail trimming.
Yeah, and I love that tip, because even if you're not trimming your dog's nails at home, it's going to make the experience of going to a groomer a lot more comfortable. So I love tips like that can prepare your dog for these events.
So if you are trimming your dog's nails at home, it's always a good idea to have some Styptic powder, because accidents can happen. So if you should happen to go a little too short on the nails, you want to have something to stop the bleeding. You can buy Styptic powder in most pet stores. Vet clinics will carry it as well. And it's just a powder that you press into the area of the nail that's bleeding, and it will stop the bleeding. If you happen not to have any Styptic powder on hand at home and you hit a quick, you can use things like baking powder to pack it into the end of the nail, or sometimes even a bar of soap as a last minute thing if you don't have anything else on hand. That will stop the bleeding as well.
Yeah.
If bleeding should happen, your dog's not going to, get to the point where you gotta, go to the vet, he's gonna bleed to death or
It does
something
seem like
that.
a traumatic event,
It
but
is.
it's not that.
When you see the blood, and especially because it's on a foot, every time they move the foot,
Right.
there's more blood.
Right.
It can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it just a little, even if you have nothing, you can apply pressure with a paper towel, wait a couple of minutes, and it will stop.
Great tips.
It's important to know that when you're doing your dog's toenails, that the back toenails are shorter often than the front toenails. The reason being, as dogs are walking and exercising, they tend to push off more with their back legs, so they're grinding on the surface that's shortening them. So if you've taken a certain amount off the front toenail, don't expect to take the same amount off the back toenail. You're likely going to need to only take a little bit off the back.
And that, for me, brings to mind the Dewclaw. Now, some dogs will have Dewclaws. Can you talk just for a moment about that?
Absolutely. So the Dewclaw is often located a little higher up the side of the foot. They can be on the back feet as well as the front feet. And because they don't touch the ground, they're not wearing down. So they almost tend to grow, it seems like they're growing faster. And they will loop around and can grow back into the dog's foot, which is quite uncomfortable. So you really want to keep an eye on those Dewclaws and make sure they're trimmed very regularly.
Now, if you're looking for more tips on teaching your dog to be comfortable with handling, then click that card right there. I have to thank Joanna from Yellow Dog Grooming for coming out and being our expert today and sharing tons of great tips. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. On that note, I'm Ken. Happy training.